What I really believe is that in life, you either do it or you don't do it. So if you're going to do it, you're going to be uncomfortable. It doesn't matter. Just do it, and then you've done it.
Alice, welcome to On the Go with Manav. It is great to have you here. Could you please tell us a bit more about yourself and where are you right now?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm in the Atlas Mountains of Morocco in a little village, a little Amazigh Berber village called Imlil. It's very cold. Dawn has broken, but the sun hasn't come up yet. The sun comes over the mountains. I'm looking forward to it to warm me up.
Amazing. I cannot wait as well. And definitely looking forward to learning more about your career journey and background. So let's get started. Now, could you please tell us a bit more about where were you at age 21 years old?
So age 21, I was at university and studying for my degree, which was Arabic and Turkish. I'd just come back from Syria, where I spent 6 months studying the language. And I was in Edinburgh at Edinburgh University.
Oh, wow. Fun fact. I was literally in Edinburgh literally like a week and a half ago.
Well, it's a beautiful city.
I love the historic there, but that's absolutely incredible. So you were there for university. Were you born and raised in the UK or like in England specifically, or were you raised in Scotland?
So I was born in Scotland, but when I was 6 weeks old, so still a very tiny baby, my mum and dad got on a boat and sailed to Africa where they were teachers. So I was brought up in Uganda in the foothills of the Ruwenzori Mountains, the Mountains of the Moon, and I had a very wild African childhood.
Wow. So definitely, I'm very curious to know later on how did this impact your journey and your career. After you graduated from university, what were sort of your early career jobs like?
Well, probably like everybody, badly paid. So when I graduated, I immediately did a TEFL course, teaching English as a foreign language, and then I moved to Cairo for 2 years. And the reasons behind that were that I'd learned classical Arabic at university and I loved it. I loved the culture. I was very immersed in it, but I knew that I couldn't speak very well because in a way, classical Arabic is a bit like learning Latin. And then you have to go and learn Italian and French and Spanish. So I moved to Egypt and I taught English as a foreign language for 2 years there. And it was the most fantastic experience. I mean, if you haven't been to Cairo, you have to go just for the craziness of it all. It is an enormous city. It can take you 2 hours to get from one end to the other. And the great thing about Egypt is the people, and they are known for what we say in Arabic, damuhum khafif, which means they have light blood. Basically, they're massive jokers. They love to laugh. So they are always like telling jokes, poking fun at you, but in a very nice way. And they really do have light blood.
It's so interesting that you said that you actually lived in Cairo because I went to Morocco for the first time earlier this year, and that was the first time I actually went to Africa. And I think after going there, Cairo has always been next on my list. I just find the culture there so interesting. I mean, I've always been fascinated by the Great Pyramids and just the people there.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, Egypt's a fabulous place to visit. I would recommend it to anyone. It's full of history, it's full of excitement, and your tourist dollars will make a difference because the economy is struggling.
Oh, no, 100%. And what made you want to pick Egypt specifically in terms of teaching foreign language there?
Lots of reasons, but really, Egyptian Arabic is very well known in the Middle East and North Africa because it's the language that, particularly previously, all the films and TV series were made in Egypt. So even if you were in Lebanon or in Morocco, people would understand Egyptian Arabic because it was so widely used in the media.
Wow. No, I actually did not know that. That's really interesting to know that as well. And what made you really inspired to learn more about languages specifically? I mean, you said in your early jobs you wanted to then teach foreign language. So what was this? Was it something through your upbringing? Did you feel like when you first moved to Uganda, did this expose you to the world, another side of the world you weren't really familiar with, and that wanted you to, I guess, like dig deeper and actually learn more about their cultures?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that being brought up, I mean, I went when I was 6 weeks old, so I think I was probably not aware of anything. But all my early memories are of Africa. And if you like, there's a huge difference between North Africa and the Middle East and sub-Saharan Africa. And I mean, obviously it's a continent, so the difference is enormous. However, I do think that Africa if you like, the land seeped into my blood. And I feel very happy now living here in Morocco. But my real interest in Arabic began because I was very good at English at school. I loved writing, and not surprising, I've become a writer. But I said to my mum and dad I wanted to study English at university, and they said, no, don't do that. And they advised me very strongly to study a language and something unusual, because, after university, you have to get a job, and they wanted me to stand out. And we were living in Dubai at the time. So I thought, right, well, Arabic, here I go. And I really studied Arabic because of the advice of my parents. And it has formed my entire life. Well, my entire life. It's certainly been very influential, and I've come back to it. So I am very grateful for that advice, but that's why I got into it. And yes, being brought up not in your own country, being a child of a third country, means you do have a different view of things. And I also think it makes you very much into an observer, just by the fact that you're different. I was very different. In Uganda, nobody could think I was Ugandan. It's impossible. Everybody else was black, and I'm Scottish white or pink. I really stood out. And it does make you into an observer, but that's fine. It's something I like about myself.
I found it very interesting when you mentioned that it was actually a parent's advice rather than your own, because usually when I went to university, I actually decided to go what I wanted to do, which was psychology. So it was rather than my parents wanted me to do business, but I wanted to do psychology. And I feel like there's always that advice of you should do what makes you happy. So I actually thought it was really interesting that you decided to, rather than actually not pursuing your English degree, you decided to go at what your parents thought. Was there a reason why you decided to do that? Was it because you thought that they were right? Or did you feel like, yeah, did you trust them in that way?
Yeah, I completely trusted them. My parents are both educators. They're both teachers. I understood the logic of it, because they explained it to me. And also, I was applying for university in Scotland. You can leave school at 17, and I was applying for my university at 16. And I
Wow.
was wise enough at 16 to know that I knew nothing. 16 is too young to choose, in my opinion, what you want to do. And really, it's interesting because, as I say, I've come full circle. I am a writer. I've written 4 books. Hopefully there'll be another couple on the way next year. So had I studied English, I think I would still have been a writer, and maybe I'd have been a writer earlier, and maybe I'd have written fiction. I don't know. But actually, I got there in the end. And I think what Arabic gave me is something very, very interesting to write about. And it really is one of the things I'm most grateful for in my life, is that advice from my parents. And it's led me here. It's led me all over the world. It's opened so many doors for me. It's made me a much more tolerant, and I would say wiser, if I can use that word, wiser person, because I've had to, if you immerse yourself in somebody else's culture, or at least try to, you have to let go of your own prejudices, and you have to let go of your own beliefs, and you have to be aware that not everybody thinks like you do, and that's great. So I am eternally grateful to my darling mother and father, Frida and Jim.
I completely heard you what you just said there just now, and 100%, yeah, I completely stand by you. I mean, that is completely
Thank you.
valid. I think obviously personal experiences truly shape us in a way and guide us, and it's
Were you
great.
glad you did psychology?
Oh yeah, 100%. No
There you
regrets.
go. You
I'm
see?
glad that. So I think it stems from two ways. I think as long as you know that you're going to give it your all and commit to it, I think that's the main thing. And that actually brings me to the next question I was going to ask, is that when did you discover this passion for writing? So you taught Arabic, but when did this passion of writing come from, and how did this translate to eventually history and adventure, and allowed you to, write books and write for like outlets? How did this all happen?
Well, I guess, I always wrote a diary from very early on. And when I was a child, my dad gave me a typewriter, which I never used, but it stuck in my memory. And basically, I went into journalism when I was 17. I got my first job in journalism, which was on a magazine called What's On in Dubai. And I was an editorial assistant, which meant there were only 3 of us in the office. There was the
Wow.
editor, the secretary, and me, the editorial assistant. So I got to do everything, from doing the page layout to doing the accounts to doing articles. And I guess that's where I started writing. I started writing at 17 on a magazine. And that early experience, I did that for a year before I went to university. Then I went to uni and did Arabic. And those 2 things got me jobs in journalism after I'd graduated and after I came back from Egypt. So it was a very, very formative year in my life, and it was also tremendous fun, and the magazine's still going, and the editor, who was the publisher, is now a billionaire. I should have stuck with it.
It's amazing how someone can believe in themselves and really truly believe in their capabilities, just realize in the long run how things work out, because I think we're always patient and we always want something to get, we want that desired result to happen sooner. So it's actually amazing that you were you were very determined but also very patient and letting the success happen long term rather than the short term effect, if you get where I'm coming from.
I do. I mean, it's very interesting what you say, because I'm not I mean, I have learned patience really since starting to be an adventurer, because you need it. But I'm not of nature. I'd say I'm Scottish, got a Celtic temperament. I'm not patient particularly. I'm always striving, always pushing. However, every single experience you have takes you further down the road and to where you arrive at. And yeah, it's been a long road, but the trick that I've discovered is you just enjoy the journey, because really that's all there is. And the success and everything else is wonderful, and it's like cherries on top of the cake. But eat the cake, enjoy the journey, because that's what you have. And that's, everyone says, oh, I'm building up memories. It's like, no, you're not, because your memories are going to fade. I can guarantee you, if I asked you what were you doing 6 months ago today at this time, you won't be able to tell me. No.
I was thinking about it for a second.
No.
No.
And
Yeah.
certainly if I said 10 years ago at this time, you'll be like, oh, 10 years ago. So I would say to everybody in work, in every part of your life, genuinely, just appreciate where you are now. And if it's a bit awful, but you still have to do it for money or to get to the next job, suck it up, do it, don't worry. Things will change, you'll get there. And patience, patience is not an attractive quality, is it?
No.
If someone describes me, I want them to say she's fabulous and interesting and adventurous and brave and full of energy. I don't want them to say she's patient. That's not the word you want people. Want people to
Yeah.
say, "Oh, that Alice Morrison. Oh, she's so patient." But actually, it is one of the most useful qualities in life, and I have come to love it. So, Manav, if you want to call me patient, I will take it as a compliment.
Very well. I think it's one of those words that have various different meanings as well. So I like to see it as a word that is rather used distinctively and used more for success rather than it being seen as a one of those words where it's like it's not as dull as it seems. It's actually there's more to it. But this also allows me to ask you now. So obviously writing and journalism. So at one point, did you realize that you're now okay to do, for example, interviews or presenting? Because you later on, you actually do more like TV production. So when did this interest then get you in terms of you wanting to put yourself out there? Because I know you also have your own podcast, Alice in Wonderland. So how did
Thank
this
you.
all come together?
Yeah, so my career progressed. I went from I worked in magazines, then I worked in magazines in London. Then I got a job at NBC, which is an Arabic broadcasting channel, which was in London and had a newsroom. It was kind of a precursor, really. They possibly wouldn't like me to say this, but it was the first Arabic news satellite station, and I worked on that because obviously I had my Arabic and I had my journalism, and I was a producer. First of all, I started as a researcher, then I was promoted to assistant producer, then I was the producer, then I moved over to the BBC and Sky newsrooms, and I worked in rolling television news as a producer, and then I became editor, so I was the one with the power, saying, let's go with these headlines, take the live from Westminster now, and all of that kind of thing. And I loved it. I loved rolling news. I loved continuous news. I loved television. I loved the grammar of it. And I really enjoyed being the editor. I loved it. I loved the whole shaping a program, getting everyone together, getting the team motivated, making sure that you were trying to be first, because in continuous news, you have to break the news first, but being accurate, making sure you were getting the story right. It was very adrenaline fueled and
Yeah.
very exciting. And I had no real thought of being in front of the screen, to be honest. I really enjoyed what I was doing. I enjoyed the whole intellectual rigor of it. I took it very seriously. I take all my jobs seriously. But I didn't really think about the other side. I didn't think about presenting. I mean, it sounds bizarre to say it didn't cross my mind when I'm working full time in broadcast television, but it
Yeah.
didn't, because I was on a very powerful career path. You know, being an editor is a big deal. I was proud to get that far. I enjoyed it massively. And then what happened was, what happened? Oh, yeah, I came to Morocco. And actually, my very first TV program, there was a thing on one of our Facebook groups, expats in Marrakesh, saying Leopard TV from the US are looking for people to talk about their journeys for House Hunters International. That's like, oh, that'll be a giggle. So they said you have to send off an audition tape. So I just scooted down to the Palmeraie, which is near where I was living, found a couple of camels and just filmed it myself on my iPhone and did my audition, and I got chosen and I did the program. And I guess that was my first taste. And then I was introduced to a TV company in Scotland called Turn Television. And we made Morocco to Timbuktu together for BBC Two. And that was my first on-screen proper television program, which was amazing.
That is such a fascinating story. And wow, I mean, it actually is a way of like you, I guess, going out of your comfort zone, because I think you would have never expected that opportunity to come in, first of all. And also you going from editing, working behind the scenes, doing the research, you already enjoyed that. That's what you were comfortable doing. So now all of a sudden you took that leap of faith and actually then going to, obviously Morocco, doing the edition. People might think that, oh, what if I don't get it? How did you believe in yourself? Did you think you were going to get it? Or like, what made you feel like, was this right for me? Like, is it easy for you to put yourself out there?
I don't think it's easy for anyone to put themselves out there. And I think the difference between success and failure is that you do put yourself out there. So I think everybody should clear their minds of the thought that it's easy for anyone to place themselves in situations they're not comfortable with. But I will say what I really believe is that in life, you either do it or you don't do it. So if you're going to do it, you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be nervous. You're going to be anxious. You're going to be fearful. Doesn't matter. Just do it. And then you've done it. If you don't do it, you haven't done it. So you won't have had any of those uncomfortable feelings, but you also won't have done it. So I would say in anything in life, just do it. And suck up the difficulty, because of course it's difficult. Of course, suddenly I've never done presenting before, but I know very well about how television works because I've done, all the other side. I've judged presenters thousands of times harshly. And then suddenly I'm horribly aware that all these people are going to judge me. And of course it's not comfortable. It's not like you don't wake up in the morning and think, I'm going to go out there and do this. And you also feel like an idiot. You've got a camera on you. You have to do lots of things to help a program along. So you do get used to them, but you might have to say the same things 20 times. And, the director will say to you, say it with more feeling, say it in a less forced manner, give it more energy, give it less energy. It's difficult. And the thing I always think about is the audience. I'm like, actually, all I am is a way for the audience to connect with this story, for me to like share my interest in this story with the audience so they want to see it. So I always think of the audience, and that helps. No, if you want to push and get through life, in my opinion, don't even try to shirk the difficult bits. Just go for it. Difficult bits will be there. I'm sure, Manav, when you started this podcast, you had to learn how to do it. You had to learn how to set everything up. You have to approach guests. It's not easy to approach people. You're always aware that they can say no or ignore you, or so it's just about it. But you're doing it. You now have your podcast. So I would say to everybody, it's not about confidence. It's not about comfort. It's about doing it.
Thank you, Alice. I mean, exactly what you said, but also it's the saying that if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the harm? Like, I think at the end of the day, the one thing I would regret in the long term is not even trying, or not even bother to trying, and actually wasting my time, rather worrying about, oh, what are people going to say? It's not easy, but you won't know unless you try. And once you do try, you'll be grateful. Then you actually know the outcome, rather than just pondering over what could have been the case. I hate the what if just situation, because you just would have known. You would have known. Yeah, you would have really known until you actually just explored, experimented. I mean, anything, I'd say. And with this presenting, did this lead you to opportunities to eventually travel?
No, it was the other way round. I had
Oh,
already traveled. Yeah. No. My travel led to the presenting. I'd
okay.
already moved to Morocco. I came to Morocco to run the toughest, it's not, but they call it the toughest foot race on earth, which is 6 marathons across the desert in 6 days. And the middle one is 82 kilometers. It's an ultra marathon. So
Wow.
I came to the Morocco to run the Marathon des Sables, which is a very famous race. And then I liked it very much and I stayed. So no, it was very much the other way around. Travel and adventure brought me to the presenting. And I'm
Okay.
very happy with that because I think first and foremost, I am Alice Morrison, female adventurer, Alice Morrison, woman explorer. And secondly, I do all the other things.
Now, throughout your career journey, you've talked a lot about the highs and obviously the successes, and rather not the word patience, but I guess you could say the things that have led to you doing great things. Obviously, there are also times of challenges and things that we don't like to share personally as well, because we're always putting on this image or saying that, everything's going well. Has there been like a particular challenging moment, and this specific moment has made you realize a lot, not just about your career, but just, I guess, like, has it changed your outlook on life and just other things?
Obviously there's been lots and lots of low moments, when you feel disrespected in your work, when you feel that you're not recognized, when you feel that you're not when you make mistakes. I mean, I've made I remember once I put the wrong I was doing I can't even remember what it was about now. I think it was a state visit of somebody, I think from Nigeria, and I gave them the wrong name on their what we call the Aston on their subtitle, and I just getting absolutely screamed at by the editor. I remember when I was working on Sky News, I didn't know who somebody was. Somebody had just died, and I didn't know who they were, and I asked, and I got absolutely screamed at, like full volume screaming in the newsroom. I was humiliated, told how stupid I was, and they didn't hire me again for like a month. I've had lots of experiences like that. I mean, in the times I was starting my career, if you did something wrong, there was no like, oh, you shouldn't do that. It's like you were absolutely bollocked, especially in a high pressure atmosphere. I was in a very competitive place. Some people wanted you to succeed, but just as many people wanted you to fail. So there were lots and lots of moments like that, and you just have to get over it because it's really hard being like screamed at for being stupid in front of a room full of people who are your colleagues is no fun. But I deserved it. I should have known who it was, and actually I shouldn't have been stupid and asked. I should have just searched until I found out. So that was another lesson. And then I think my worst time at work, full stop, was I set up and ran a quasi non-governmental organization for developing media in the northwest of England called Vision and Media. Very, very successful. I built it up I started off with a grant of £830,000 a year, and I built it up to £10 million a year, 40 staff. I was the chief exec. And then because of political changes, my funders changed and I had to fold the company into a bigger company, which was the right thing to do. But it meant that I was making people redundant. I was basically killing my own baby because I built this thing. I'd spent 9 years building it, and then I had to destroy it. And really not through any lack of success. I think that's what really got me, but purely because of the Tory party came into government. So I had to destroy what I'd built, and I had to make people redundant, which if you've ever had to do it and if anyone out there has, it's really horrible. I myself have been made redundant several times, and it's horrible being made redundant, and it's horrible making people redundant, especially when they've done nothing wrong. They've worked really hard and they've been really good employees and they don't deserve it. Anyway, so that was horrible. And it felt very unfair. I felt the injustice of it very, very strongly. And I felt a huge resentment against the London elite, who I felt were just, because I was in the Northwest, I was in Manchester and Liverpool, and I thought, you just don't give a monkeys and you don't really care about us. So I was very angry, very upset, very emotional. And obviously I couldn't show any of that to my employees because I'm their chief exec. They need me to lead them. Anyway, I made myself redundant because I was redundant. And then I signed up to race across Africa on a bicycle. So I left the rat race for a bike race. That became the tagline for my first book, Dodging Elephants. And I cycled from Cairo to Cape Town and set my life on an adventuring track. So in the end, that was the best thing that happened to me, but it was horrible. And I still feel guilty about those poor people whose jobs I had to take away from them.
Oh man, thank you for sharing all of this. I mean, I can imagine it must have been not easy at all talking about it now. Talking about it now obviously is a bit easier, but at the moment, I cannot just imagine all of this happening. With what you built now, obviously you launched Arabian Adventures and Alice in Wonderland. Could you also please tell us a bit more about both broadcast opportunities that you're working on?
I have my own podcast called Alice in Wonderland with an A. And in it, I talk about my life in Imlil. I talk about my adventures. When I walk across Saudi Arabia, which I'm starting in January, I'll be broadcasting from the route, me and my camels. So that will be very exciting. And I've enjoyed podcasting. It's fun to do. And I managed to get in Apple's top 50 in the UK. So I was very happy with that. And on television, yeah, I've been lucky enough again to be hired by the BBC, and I've been doing programs for BBC, the BBC News Channel, BBC Channel. So if you are in a hotel room in Thailand, you'll probably see my little face popping up. I did one series called Arabian Adventures about the secrets of the Nabateans, which was about Petra in Jordan and the wonderful Al Ula in Saudi Arabia, which I enjoyed very much, talking about this ancient civilization. And I've just done another program called Ultimate Azerbaijan, where I traveled all across Azerbaijan. I went to search for the bison because they're reintroducing bison into the Caucasus in Azerbaijan. I went down the Silk Road. And I met this amazing young female photographer who's kind of breaking stereotypes with her lens. So yeah, I've been fortunate enough to do a few programs and very much enjoy them. And you can catch them on BBC iPlayer or on the BBC News Channel. Look at this face, you'll see it popping up.
And look forward to definitely seeing more of you on the screens and also more broadcasting opportunities. I was actually fortunate to actually see you, Alice, interview Rami from the Royal Commission for Lula, Vice President of Destination Management and Marketing. And this, I think, once I saw you interviewed, I was like, I need to definitely get this girl on. I was like, just inspired by the way you were asking the questions and just the natural conversations, and also having been to Alula myself, it's one of my favorite destinations. And just the way you both were talking about it, it was just, I mean, it makes me miss it already, just because I already went there last year, and I know you're going again next year. Could you please tell us a bit more about what you have coming up next year in terms of your travel opportunities?
Well, so my real, when I sign my emails, I sign them Alice Morrison Adventurer, because really my main job is to be an adventurer. So adventurers have got to adventure. And next year I'm doing an absolutely massive adventure, definitely out of my comfort zone, but it's going to be great. So I'm walking north to Saudi Arabia, from the border with Jordan to the border with Yemen. It's going to take around 4 to 5 months. I'm walking with camels. I'm walking, but the camels are there with me, to explore the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And my first stage takes me down into Al Ula. So I will arrive in Al Ula on foot with my camels and see what I can find. Because the joy of exploring, of course, you're walking across the desert, is what can you find? I've done something similar. I've walked from the Mediterranean to Mauritania, across Morocco and the Sahara, and that took 7.5 months. And, we found Stone Age settlements, we found a lost city, we found tools in the middle of the desert, we found a secret well in the middle of the sands, we found the tombs of the giants, we found Stone Age spaceships. I mean, literally, it was amazing. And I'm hoping that I will have a similar experience in Saudi Arabia.
I'm sure you will. I'm definitely sure you will. And I cannot wait to see more about your experiences next year. Talking about going out and out of your comfort zone, that's exactly what you're doing. So good for you, and cannot wait to see it all in action.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, and can I just say, if anyone's interested, I have 4 books out. So check out alicemorrison.co.uk/books, or check out my podcast, Alice in Wonderland, which you so kindly plugged for me, Manav.
No worries at all. And as we're now coming near the end of this podcast specifically, my last question for you is talking about where we started, where I asked you, what were you doing at age 21? Looking at what we've discussed throughout this podcast, if you were to go back to, imagine you're a 21-year-old right now who's still in Edinburgh University and about to graduate and enter this very interesting journey of life, what would you say to 21-year-old Alice? Morrison?
I think, what would I say? Say follow your path, you're on the right road, and it's going to wind and it's going to take you away from you. Arabic now and Turkish is everything to you, and you're very, obviously I was very passionate about lots of causes, and I thought I was going to change the world, and I haven't changed the world. I hope I've brought some kind of mutual understanding sometimes between Western and Eastern cultures. That's what my real aim is, bringing peace one salam alaikum at a time, or bringing understanding. I think, what would I say to myself? I'd say you're on the right path. Don't stress, but keep working. Keep working.
And that's what she did.
Yeah, it was.
She came, she conquered, and
I still have to conquering lies ahead of me. I haven't conquered yet.
You will next year.
Inshallah.
And more to come.
Inshallah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alice, for being here today. It is so nice to learn more about you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. And for people who want to get in touch with you or learn more about you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
My website's alicemorrison.co.uk. If you search Alice Morocco on Google, you'll find me everywhere. Or most of my social media tags are Alice out there and then the number 1. So TikTok, Instagram, X, all of them. Alice out there 1. Yeah, so find me. I'm very easy to find.
Awesome. You guys heard that? Well, if you're watching this right now, make sure to give a like or subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and check out for the next episode to come very soon. Thank you, Alice, for joining us here today, and take care, guys.